Hi everyone, my name is Tariro Nussinov. I also go by Tari for short. And when I was first asked to do this video, I immediately thought about where I was when I found out about the 11 Jews that were killed in Pennsylvania at the Tree of Life synagogue. And I remember I was sitting in New York at my school library procrastinating studying by scrolling through Twitter when I saw the news. And I remember saying, "Oh my God," out loud in the library, forgetting that I was in the library and forgetting my surroundings and bringing myself back in. And my heart sank. It was a deep, visceral pain. And it wasn't a new pain because I know the grief cycle, like the grief cycle intermixed with celebration, grief cycle. But knowing a grief cycle doesn't stop you from feeling. And I remember it distinctively though, because it was also during the time that I was struggling a lot with my identity as a Black and Jewish person. And it was an identity at that point that I had never unpacked in any truthful or authentic way. My family and I moved to St. Louis from Los Alamos, New Mexico in 2008. And I've been a part of the CRC community since then, roughly. So I was in the 8th grade and I was about 12 or 13. I am originally from Harare, Zimbabwe, and I moved to the United States when I was roughly 8 or 9. And I'm currently 25 years old and live in California and still think a lot of CRC as home and a place of community, and especially as a place that helped me feel less alone. I was always one of those kids that felt lost and confused about who I was because I thought that I had to be one thing. And I also think that assimilation into Western culture played a role in that. But I thought I could either be A or I could be B. And as I've grown up, of course, I've realized that I can be A, B, C. I can be A, B, A, C. But I really struggled a lot with binary thinking. But I've learned that living with these various intersectionalities and living with these identities allows me to really appreciate people and things and life as a whole. But I spent a lot of time thinking about identities and how identities shape the way that we all move and interact in this world and with each other. And I feel really lucky to have this opportunity to talk about what it means to be Black and Jewish to me, especially in our current climate, especially knowing that a lot of Black Jews are left out of conversations like this. I think it even goes to a more personal level for me because it's something that I've really been wrestling with for the last 3 years on a deeper level. And I clearly remember the moment where I felt like I had gotten it and not like, I can never get it, but it was one of those like catalytic moments that you kind of carry on and it builds on top of each other. And it was a moment that helps the way that I show up in spaces and the way that I interact with other people. So I'm going to share that story. So prior to moving to California, I was in New York City for 2 years getting a master's at Columbia. And my program had a required class called PROP, which stands for Power, Race, Oppression, and Privilege. And that's where we learn from an anti-Black racism lens. And it was also during this time, like I mentioned before, where 11 Jews were killed at the Tree of Life synagogue. And it was then that a student in my school published an op-ed in the Columbia Daily Spectator, and it was titled "The Anti-Semitism Intersectionality Gap." And in it, the author talked about how there was a hyperbolic conflation of Jewishness with whiteness, and how she felt that her Jewishness was dismissed due to her white skin. She talked about not having a space to feel deeply. She talked about not having a space to be sad. And I understood that. I understood those feelings. And while holding and understanding those feelings, I also understood that within an instant, she had just erased me and people like me. What made me really mad about this piece is that I always have to think about justice. And I say that because thinking about justice means that there is struggle It means that there is war, oppression, pain, and I hate struggle and oppression, and I hate war, and I hate pain, and I wish I and all of us could have been born into a world where there was freedom, like true freedom, like freedom as in like liberation, not freedom as in maintaining the status quo. And the thing about being Black and Jewish is that my people are not just being murdered in synagogues. My people are also being murdered by police. My people are being murdered by police officers on Shabbat. It means that me, as a Black Jewish woman, I deal with anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, misogyny, misogynoir, biracial. I mean, the struggle, the war is everywhere. And what makes me sad about reading that op-ed is that the author didn't stop and acknowledge the positionality, the power that she and other white Jews have by being white. She didn't stop and acknowledge the structural and interpersonal differences that she carries by having white skin. And lately, I've been thinking a lot about the ease at which anti-Blackness and anti-Semitism are always pitted against each other, while white supremacy, whiteness gets off scot-free. Like, it fills me with a lot of rage. It fills me with rage because it only adds to us being complicit in racism, anti-Blackness, and anti-Semitism. And I know I still have a lot to learn. I have a lot to unlearn. And I think that we need to all get to a point where that is the standard, right? Living a life of learning and unlearning, being restorative when things call for restoration, being transformative when things call for transformation. Being Black and being Jewish are identities that are filled to the brim with a lot of pain. And yet there's so much joy. There's a lot of gift. There's a lot of fun. I just think back to growing up and seeing and having my grandparents hiding the afikoman, or like now being an adult and adding collard greens at my own Seder. And more often than not, I am appreciative and feel lucky and blessed that I get to walk in this life and be this, right? Like, and yet I also, because of justice, right? I'd like to ask questions that are for those that are neither Black or Jewish. For you to ask yourselves, right? If you're being anti-Black or if you're being anti-Semitic. And then for white Jews, what does it mean to be in a community with Black Jews? What does it mean to be in a community with Jews of color? I see the beauty of these videos, and yet I worry that we're sharing in isolation. How can we fix that? What can white Jews do to be more accountable? And then thoughts for my Black community. Just because we experience racism doesn't mean that we can't be ignorant. We have to understand the differences that exist in our own communities and hold ourselves accountable. And that means asking ourselves how we can be in better solidarity with other struggles, right? Like a global context of struggle, of fighting systems and institutions and whiteness that doesn't only kill Black people, but generations of being and experiences. I think that we must fight for freedom because we have no other choice. We have no other choice. And so, knowing that we have no other choice, how can we do this all together? So, that's all I got.